Now, I'd like to talk about a model for achieving cultural competence, and we use this through a continuum. And so this continuum was developed by researchers in Georgetown University's Child Development Center. And this model basically describes this range of 6 points on a continuum, or like a scale of cultural competence. And here is that scale. So at the bottom, we see cultural destructiveness. In the second tier, we see cultural incapacity. The third tier, we see cultural blindness. In the fourth level, we see cultural pre-competence. On the fifth tier, we see cultural competence. And on the sixth tier, we see cultural proficiency. Let's take a look at each one of these. All right, so we see number one, cultural destructiveness. And this is the point on the scale that's characterized by attitudes or policies, structures, and practices by people that are very destructive to members of a specific cultural group. And oftentimes this results in openly hostile racist behavior or remarks. This singles people out in a very destructive way. And we find that this destroys a lot of relationships. So it's hard to communicate with others when we're in the cultural destructiveness tier. Next, we have cultural incapacity. And this is the point that describes the inability of an individual to respond effectively to the needs and interests of culturally and linguistically diverse groups. So again, this is the inability to do so. This is the second tier of the competency continuum. Next up is cultural blindness. And this describes a stance that's taken by most people, which they view everybody as just being the same. No matter what culture they're from, they're treated the same. So there really is no black or white, if you will. There really isn't singling people out. We just don't recognize, the cultural aspects of other people. So there's this some blindness that's set aside for this. There's cultural pre-competence. And this is the point on the continuum that describes the level of awareness by people that are trying to grow and respond effectively to culturally and linguistically diverse groups. So these are people that try to work on this continuum of cultural competence. Then we have cultural competence itself. And this is a term that describes the individuals or institutions that actually demonstrate the acceptance and respect for cultural differences. And right on top of the cultural competence continuum describes individuals that have the highest regard for cultural diversity, and they use this as the foundation or the guide to interact with other people and form meaningful relationships. Everybody falls on different aspects of this continuum. And I encourage you to pause this PowerPoint for just a moment and ask yourself, where do you fall on this continuum? In terms of healthcare practitioners, we ideally want to be culturally proficient.